Thank everybody. You're gold.
Thank you for your life. Go ahead.
Thank you, everybody, for actually voting for our book and our film to be gold medal quality. And we're so appreciative of your input, your support. It's great to win the gold for the book. We hear on the 2nd of June, I believe, June 2nd, we're going to get the information on whether or not we won gold for the film. Although we were notified about a week ago that we actually made it to the last vote on that. So that sounds really good to me. Sounds like we're going to have gold for both. Thanks to you. All right, we're going to take your questions now, answer any questions that you have. This is like Radio Shack. You have questions, we have answers. Fire away.
All right, I have a question from Wayne. My wife and 25-year-old daughter were required to get the COVID vaccine plus booster. Is there any way to purge the vaccine out of the body?
Wayne, there are different detoxification prospects that you can actually engage in to clean the body out, cleaning the lymph system, the liver, the gallbladder. I think you could probably use something like Chemtox. There's a company called DesBio, DESBIO, DesBio. They make a product called Chemtox. It's a great detoxification agent. It's 15 drops under the tongue 3 times a day. Chemtox by DesBio. Anybody else? What's next?
Yes, from Yvette. Dizziness all the time, clogged ear and tinnitus, fatigue, hair loss, sometimes tingling in the face or arms at the same time. Begun 15 days after vaccine in June.
Yvette, I would advise that you actually check your basal temperatures. Keep a thermometer by the bedstand. Shake it down before you fall asleep at night. Put it under your left arm when you first awaken in the morning. Check your temperatures 3 consecutive days. Figure out your 3-day average. The goal is between 97.8 and 98.2. Under between 97.8 and 98.2. That's the goal. If you're under 97.8, your thyroid's underactive. So if your thyroid's underactive, you need to take something like potassium iodide, 1 drop a day. Check on that thyroid first. It sounds to me like your thyroid's underactive. Who's next?
I have a question from Just Me from MA. Long-term effects of radiation and chemo 40 years later. Anything natural to fix it without having to do surgery?
Chemo actually presents a lot of side effects long-term. So, I mean, over the course of 30, 40 years later, it's pretty clear that there's symptoms that you're likely going to notice well before the 30 or 40-year time period. But if you think about supporting your body and trying to offset the ravages of chemotherapy, which are kind of tough on the body, you might want to consider something like alginic acid, ALGINIC, alginic acid. Alginic acid is actually from seaweed, and it has sodium alginate. So about 150 milligrams of sodium alginate a day should actually help you greatly with those radiation side effects. Alginic acid. You can buy that at the health food store. Easy to find. Or sodium alginate, 150 milligrams twice a day. And who's next?
Okay, I have another one from Robert Goldstein. Fermented items, kimchi, etc. for gut health. Why is it not suggested?
Robert is his name?
Yes.
Robert. I'm not really good with the idea of fermented foods. I think, you go back in the 80s, mid 80s, there was a lot of books written on yeast, candida bacteria, and the yeast connection. The yeast connection is actually pretty clear about the fact that fermented foods produce a lot of problems systemically in the body. Here's the thing. If you think about COVID-19 exposures, we've talked a lot about how people actually build up their natural immunity by being exposed. Same thing happens with yeast, fermented foods. A little bit can be helpful. A little bit of fermented food can be helpful because it actually helps pick up your body's immune capability of defending itself and becoming stronger in the face of something that's kind of problematic. The problem is when people overdo it. And in our culture, we tend to eat a lot of fermented foods, a lot of sugar in the diet, a lot of fermented foods in the diet, a lot of pizza, beer, wine, champagne, a lot of soy sauce, Chinese foods, things like that, nuts, peanut butter. So because we eat so much of it, because we consume so much, it's not supportive. It's not helpful. It doesn't encourage our bodies to build up a natural immunity to that stuff. So we're overdoing it. I think a little bit is good. A little bit goes a long way, but there's too much in the culture. Go ahead.
This is
How come this one's
from
off, by the way?
Yvette. The blood analysis didn't show thyroid problems, just the prolactin high, a little bit of sugar, 109. This homeopath medical herbalist gave me medicine, but I still have the same symptoms in addition to an earache. Did you hear all that?
So she had blood work done?
Blood analysis, and it didn't show any thyroid problems.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Listen, what's her first name?
Yvette.
Yvette. It doesn't matter if your blood work showed thyroid problems or not, because there's a place called the Broda Barnes Research Foundation in Trumbull, Connecticut. That's the most respected thyroid research center in the world. They say the most important test to take is the basal temperature, the one I just told you about. Temperature and the thermometer under the left arm, 10 minutes first thing in the morning, and record your temperatures. That's much more important than the blood work, according to the Broda Barnes Research Foundation. So get your basal temperatures done. That's still important. Next.
Here's a question from Instagram. After my second vaccine of COVID, I started to feel very, very bad. I actually passed out after the second shot, and she couldn't go back to normal life. How can she get that out of her system?
Again, I recommend DesBio Chemtox, CHEMTOX, DesBio Chemtox drops. And again, a little while ago, I mentioned something that is important as well. Sodium alginate, alginic acid, 150 milligrams a day. 1 or 2 a day is important. So that's another way you can actually clean your body out, detox your body from these elements as well. Anybody else?
So Yvette had a second part of her question that her right ear, there's her right ear, and she feels it inside, kind of inflammation up and on the right side of her body, up the right breast from the back to the head. And she doesn't know how to describe it. It's just all the right side. What can she do, and how can I contact you? She called the office.
You can call the office to contact me. 781-817-3444. 781-817-3444. It sounds to me like your liver and your gallbladder are involved in the process of toxicity. You know, the right side of the body is liver, gallbladder, left side is spleen and lymphatic. So it's likely that you have some problems with inflammation in the bile duct of the gallbladder, which actually, the other part of it in Chinese medicine, the gallbladder actually is, the meridians are all lined up in the head, sinuses, eyes, ears, nose, throat. So any kind of inflammation in the head, eye, ear, nose, throat, that's usually gallbladder rooted. Gallbladder is, again, all the meridians that run into the head and the sinuses. And that's all important to pay attention to. Go ahead.
Is CMOS helpful for everyone, or can it be harmful for someone with thyroid issues?
Alginic acid and CMOS should be probably avoided by somebody who has hyperthyroid. Hypothyroid shouldn't be bad. Hyperthyroid, anybody who has an overactive thyroid, you got to be careful about those supplements. What happened to this?
Yeah, it just says it's on.
Okay.
It's on.
There he is.
Yeah, there he is. I'm just looking for questions.
Anybody else? Next question.
So Christy Cromwell says, any idea on the cause of an ocular migraine, also called a scintillating
Scotoma.
or what to do to prevent it?
Yeah. Here's the thing. Scintillating scotomas more often than not are from arginine. Arginine is an amino acid that actually drives up the inflammatory response to retroviruses. So the retroviruses that cause the so many headaches that people have, migraine headaches, are often caused by retroviruses, RNA viruses that are chronic, like herpetic viruses, things like that, and that are fed and they're buoyed, strengthened by actually taking arginine in the diet. Arginine from nuts, seeds, corn products, egg yolks, chocolate, all strengthen. A lot of arginine, they all strengthen the viruses, and the viruses become worse. You have to avoid those foods and take a lot of lysine, like 3,000 milligrams of lysine a day. Next.
How do you get rid of lymphedema? Her legs are swollen and big 24/7.
All right, so lymphedema, you want to make sure first and foremost you take the time to stop using the salt shaker. No using salt. If you have lymphedema, you're holding on to fluid, no salt. That doesn't work for you. Number 2, there's a product called Water Out, and it's made by NOW. So Now Company makes Water Out. It's a great diuretic, really safe, really nice product, works effectively, great stuff. That's what I'd recommend. Go ahead.
Why mushrooms are not good, or what type of mushrooms are good?
Again, I as I said a few minutes ago, I'm not in favor of building up a high concentration of fermented foods in the diet. A little bit of fermented food from time to time can actually build your adaptation response. Too much actually overwhelms it. So I'm not a fan, because most of the American diet is a lot of hidden fermentation, a lot of sources of fermented foods and beverages. We have a lot of pizza, like I said, a lot of sugar, a lot of Chinese food, stuff like that. So we're not in a good position to build our strength with a little exposure of fermentation. So that's what I say about mushrooms and fermented food. Not good. They produce too much yeast. Go ahead.
Okay. What can you do to remove or heal a chemical burn to the scalp caused by overexposure to a dandruff shampoo containing coal tar?
Coal tar can burn the scalp, no question about it. I think one of the best things you could probably do for that is to actually put some baking soda and water on your skin. So I know there's before bed at night, you might want to massage a little moist baking soda and water into the scalp to try to buffer it. That's what I'd recommend. Next.
How can I treat PCOS, ovarian cysts?
PCOS, ovarian cysts. First things and foremost things I think I'd recommend is no yeast, no fermented foods. Again, things like we just said a little while: vinegar, yeasted breads, sugars, nuts and seeds, Chinese food, miso, tempeh, tamari, soy sauce, teriyaki sauce, shoyu. Those got to go. So I think that PCOS, rule number 1, get the fermentation down. That's really important. That'll put you in a better position to neutralize the presence of these growths. I think another good supplement that I'd recommend, IP6. IP6. Take like 500 milligrams for a day. Next.
Any advice on how to treat bilateral trigeminal neuralgia? Yeah. Thank you, Mark.
Trigeminal neuralgia. Probably a good idea to think in terms of correcting your pH first. So get your pH between 6.4 and 6.8. A little baking soda, a quarter teaspoon of baking soda in water before bed. Also taking something like chloroxygen. Chloroxygen, 18 drops in water 3 times a day. Chloroxygen. Those should prove helpful. Next.
I was recently diagnosed with RA. Any suggestions? Rheumatoid factor showed up as 37.
Yeah, rheumatoid factor, you got to be careful of things like foods that have high arachidonic acid, dairy, red meat, nuts, corn products, chocolate, egg yolks, red meat, dairy. Those are the keys. I think avoid those, and then those should make it a lot easier for you to stay away from the symptoms of RA. RA is basically inflammatory, and it's the end product of a lot of arachidonic acid from inflammatory foods. So stop the inflammatory foods. Who's next?
Sonia asks what we need to make the microbiome stronger.
There's a lot of different products, obviously, to help the microbiome. There's something called Atrantil, Atrantil. Atrantil is really good, and I think that there's also really good. There's a series of good probiotics as well. I still like the Jarrow 299V. The 299V Plantarum is great stuff. Who's next?
Shauna, her almost 2-year-old son tested positive for salmonella and is colonized with C. diff. DNA detected not toxin.
I think we can use the Atrantil on him.
Yeah.
Atrantil. Atrantil, good product. That should help. Who's next?
I have BRCA1. I'm super healthy, but the cancer manifested in my breast and then in the brain. I had brain surgery and a double mastectomy and reconstruction. What would you do for prevention?
I would recommend something like, I think first things first, I do Nature's Sunshine Herbs, PAW, P-A-W. That's actually called Nature's Sunshine Herbs cell reg, CELL reg, REG, cell regulator, which is pawpaw. 17.5 milligrams. I'd take 4 a day. I'd also take some ellagic acid, 500 milligrams, 4 a day. I take some IP6, 500 milligrams, 4 a day. Those are important. Who's next?
My 13-year-old son has headaches since October 2020. How diagnostics?
What's the
I
question?
think she's just asking, what can you do for headaches for 2 years?
Headaches, I mean, first things first, you got to think about the cause of the headaches. Does he have food allergies? You have to be careful about potential food allergies. Like I said earlier, arginine foods, chocolate, egg yolks, corn products. Be careful of those foods. Just avoid those foods and take lysine, 500 milligrams of lysine. 1,000 milligrams of lysine, 4 a day.
What do you recommend for fatty liver?
For fatty liver, I recommend you take some dandelion root tea. Take a cup or a mug of dandelion root tea twice a day. I'd also recommend that you avoid animal fats. Things like red meat, butter, sour cream. Be super careful about the fats in general. Keep your diet lean, super low fat, and I think you also want to make sure that you don't overconsume nuts and seeds for any time at all.
After COVID, producing nonstop mucus. I feel it in my nose and throat. How can I stop that?
COVID is loaded with mucus, phlegmatic properties. It's so damp. It's such an incredibly mucus-forming sickness. I think one of the most important things you can do to actually neutralize that is red clover tea. I think red clover tea, again, 2 mugs a day should make a difference. I think also mullein, mullein, mullein capsules, 500 milligrams, 4 a day. Those should help a lot.
So what do you recommend for gallbladder issues? I have sinus congestion and ear blockage.
All right, gallbladder issues. Like, again, when you understand Chinese medicine, Oriental medicine, you realize that the gallbladder works at many different levels in the head, in the sinuses, in the eyes, the ears, the nose, the throat, etc., and the mucus forming in the body, and neck aches, headaches, stuff like that. So there's a lot of corollaries between the process of gallbladder sickness and imbalance creating problems all over the body. I think one of the most important things you can do is there's a homeopathic medicine called Nat-Sulph, Natsulph, Nat-Sulph, 30C, 3 pellets 3 times a day. That's really helpful medicine for gallbladder. Homeopathic. Who's next?
How can you help with low AMH, which is low egg reserve?
Low egg reserve. I mean, I think the most important thing that I've done, if you watch the film, The Way of Miracles, I talk in that film about the importance of building up minerals. It's all about minerals. Everything's about minerals. To build up your ovarian reserves, you need minerals. That's what produces fertility in the world, mineral activity. So you want to think in terms of the minerals I like are the liquid fulvic, FULVIC. FUL is in Frank ULVIC, fulvic. Fulvic minerals, I take 2 servings a day of recommended dose.
Is that now brand?
Yeah, now brand.
Sure. So Siobhan asks, hello, Mark. Thank you for all you do. What is the best thing to reduce high cholesterol?
The best way to get rid of cholesterol, naturally speaking, would be to use a couple things. Actually, you could use fish oils, because you want to keep your HDL. You want to keep your good fish oils, your good cholesterol elevated. So get plenty of fish oils. Like I like the Nordic Naturals, 1,200 milligrams. Take 4 a day. Also, the other thing you do to get your bad cholesterol down is to take red yeast rice. That'll take down your bad cholesterol, and the fish oils will build up your good cholesterol. And the most important thing about cholesterol, keep this in mind. So many doctors, so many family doctors are making the mistake of trying to just tell folks to get their cholesterol low. That's not the deal. That's not the good way to do it. You want to elevate your good cholesterol, HDL, and you want to lower your LDL. Most important thing is you want a ratio. Your total to HDL should be 3.5 to 1 or less. 3.5 to 1 or less. You do that, you're golden. Let's take another one.
So thoughts on coffee enema for detox?
Yeah, coffee enemas. A lot of people have done them over the years. A lot of people are successful with them and enjoy their byproduct, their end product. You got to make sure you're working with somebody. Don't do it by yourself. I wouldn't advise you do that kind of stuff by yourself. That's pretty radical. You got to work with somebody who really knows what they're doing. Somebody who's a colonic irrigationist or something like that. But don't do that on your own. Go ahead.
So mitral and tricuspid valve stenosis and regurgitation needs fixing. What can I do?
If the valves are out of balance, like you said, you want to be thinking in terms of food first and foremost. Avoid dairy, wheat, red meat, nuts and seeds, corn products. And you want to make sure that you're also taking fish oils. Like I said, the Nordic Naturals, 1,200 milligrams, like 4 to 6 a day. Next.
Best essential oils for cellular repair.
Best essential oils for cellular repair probably would be something like flax. Flax oil is probably as good as it gets. It's an antioxidant. It's rich in alpha-linolenic acid, so you want to get plenty of ALAs for repair work, and that's the best that I could recommend. Would be flax oil.
So I've been diagnosed with notalgia, paresthesia. My doctor says they don't know why it's happening. It feels like the shingles I had last year. Your thoughts? It's like up in the upper back.
Yeah, I think that's a virus problem, in my opinion. And more often than not, those are viral rooted. You got to be careful about arginine. Like I said earlier, take the arginine out of the diet. That's very important. So not a lot of corn, nuts and seeds, egg yolks, chocolate. Be careful of those foods. Stay away from them. And you want to also think in terms of increasing your lysine. Take lysine, 1,000 milligrams, 4 a day. That should help you. Who's next?
Hello, both my parents are suffering from sleep apnea and they have to sleep with oxygen pump.
Yeah.
What can we do to treat this?
Oxygen is very much part of hemostatic function. So you want to actually regulate your hemostatic function by correcting your pH, increasing the balance of your hemoglobin, hematocrit. That's how you get oxygen delivered at a cell level. So you want to make sure your pH is between 6.4 and 6.8, like we said earlier. I would chlorophyll that I recommend to balance that out would be the chloroxygen. Chloroxygen would be 18 drops 3 times a day in water. And make sure you eat plenty of vegetables, drink plenty of water to stay hydrated. That's important too. Next.
What could help with hyperthyroidism?
Hyperthyroid?
Hypo, and which foods would be good at what to avoid? Any supplements?
Hypothyroid. Yeah, if you got low thyroid, you want to make sure that you're taking something like I would recommend iodine in the form of potassium iodide. 1 drop, just 1 drop a day. Also, you can think in terms of there's a company called NS, Natural Sources. Natural Sources makes a raw thyroid tablet capsule, or you could take like 2 capsules a day, about 250 milligrams raw thyroid. That's important.
Besides eating less sugar, how to bring A1C down?
You bring down your A1C by being really careful about starch, not just sugar. So a lot of people eat too much starch. Even the ones that don't eat sugar, they eat too much starch, too much bread, cereal, pasta, stuff like that. Increase your proteins and low-starch vegetables. The volume of protein and low-starch vegetables has to be significantly higher than the volume of starch. That'll make a big difference with your A1C. Go ahead.
I read that eating 6 prunes a day can help build bone and osteoporosis. Are there any caveats about that?
6 prunes a day is going to provide you with an awful lot of sugar. So I'm not wild about doing it that way. But what you can do is there's a company called Garden of Life. Garden of Life makes a product called Grow Bone. It's a Grow Bone system. It works like a charm. Fantastic. They came on my radio show one night years ago, and the CEO said, he guaranteed my listening audience, or he'd pay them money back from what they spent on the product. And everybody grew bone. There were like 300 people that grew bones. Amazing product. Grow Bone by Garden of Life. Yeah.
My nephew is 9 years old. He's overweight and keeps gaining weight, and he's always hungry. Doctors say his thyroid, etc., are fine. I'm worried.
How old is he?
9.
He's hungry all the time?
Hungry all the time, overweight, and keeps gaining. Doctors say his thyroid's fine.
I think he's got yeast.
Yeah.
So you got to be careful. That little boy needs to be treated for yeast. Get him on Podiarco and caprylic acid or supplements, and let him take those for about 6 months, and get him off the sugary stuff and the fermented stuff.
All right, we have time for about 2 more.
2 more questions.
Help with rosacea.
Inflammation. You want to, again, stay away from arachidonic acid. You want to lower your leukotriene B4s. You want to lower your lipoxins, hydroxylated fatty acids. So eat more vegetables, eat more alkalinity, again, build up your alkalinity more. And also you want to take something like fish oils again. A really good anti-inflammatory for rosacea would be PEA. 600 milligrams for a day. PEA. Who's next?
Let's do those last 2. The MS and
So I have a male 48 with MS, affected bones and eyes are getting weak. Any supplements or diet?
For his eyes?
Yeah, in his diet. His eyes are weak and it's affecting his bones.
for the MS.
You want to probably start off with fish oils again. You want to get some omega-3 support. 1,200 milligrams of fish oils for a day. I'd also recommend that you actually use in your eyes. Use the Can-C. It's liquid carnosine or Can-C. Just take it as directed. Drops in the eyes. That should help your eyes. The other thing I'd say for that is you got to be super careful about your diet. Got to be anti-inflammatory all the way. No fooling around with that diet at all. Go ahead.
Any specific recommendations for myasthenia gravis?
Yes. I would say that you want to think in terms of using something like probably like we could use some support from methionine, methionine, methionine. I'd say 500 milligrams for a day. I think also N-acetylcysteine is important for that, NAC.
Okay. All right. I'll do that last one. And then
We'll take one more question.
One more, and then you have to say goodbye.
Right.
Last question. What's a good calcium to take?
There's a lot of different calciums. I think it depends on the nature of the calcium. I still like the coral calcium. There's one called, actually there's more than one that I like. I like the calcium that's the algae-based calcium from Garden of Life is good. I like algae-based calciums. They're among the best calciums. About 1,000 milligrams.
Okay. Everybody's saying thank you.
Thanks for joining us. I appreciate you being here. We'll be back in 2 weeks. So put your questions together for 2 weeks from now, and we'll be happy to answer them. Thanks for coming. Appreciate it. Thank you for your support.